My brother Chancellor, I hope you would permit me to go ahead without going through what you've said in terms of recognizing people here in relation to protocol. So, let me express my profound gratitude to the Chancellor, Chair, members of Council of this great institution for the honor bestowed on me this morning. So, it is an honor I accept with humility and proudly share with Nananum, whose joint efforts have contributed to everything we have achieved in the 25 years of our reign. And they are well represented here with my brother Asantehene, who is chairman of the Council of State. They've all been very supportive of me within the last 25 years. Nana Pohima is signaling me and everything, I know. So, the establishment of one institution may not count very much in the scheme of national development, but I will suggest that one of the many visionary acts of our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, was a decision to establish a university focused on education with the task of producing the quality manpower needed for the education of the people of Ghana. And there could not be a better place to have the honor of hosting such a university than the city of Cape Coast. Osabarima, your city is where the light of higher education in this nation was lit, inspiring a thirst for knowledge and drawing thousands from every corner of the land to drink from its fountain of knowledge. We owe it to the churches for their initiative in establishing and laying the foundations of secondary education on a grand scale. From Asantehene and Wesley Girls' School to Adisado College, Holy Child and St. Augustine's, the Methodist Church, the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church led the way in providing the best in education and in conditions of gender equality long before the value of inclusivity gained universal acceptance. This university, on whom we have to depend for the training of our teachers, stands as a crowning jewel of a city of enlightenment, from whose commanding hills and sandy beaches, millions of the best brains in our land have been molded, have grown the best talents who have kept the administration of our nation. This university began life in 1962 as the University College of Education, in a special relationship with the University of Ghana, Legon, with the prime mandate of producing graduate teachers to meet the manpower needs of the Ghana Education Service. It seems unbelievable today to recall that its total enrollment as at that time was 155 students, split between two departments, the Department of Science and the Arts. And the whole concept was deemed controversial in some circles. However, it survived the political upheavals of the period, and in 1971, it attained the status of a fully fledged university with the right to grant its own degrees. The mandate of the university was expanded beyond the needs of education, and today it is a burgeoning community of over 75,000 students from all disciplines. The founding fathers and their pioneering administrators have every reason to be proud of what they have bequeathed to the nation. And long may we continue to herald the achievements of this university. But even as we exalt these achievements and honor those whose hard work has made it possible, we cannot but pause and reflect on the fate and fortunes of the single subject for which this university was created, and I speak of education. It remains quite problematic to me that 60 years down the line, we are still grappling with the same challenges that informed the decision to establish this university in the first place. Some historical background may be appropriate here. Although the Gold Coast carried the tag of a model colony, less than 10% of our population had been to school by 1951, when the people were allowed to elect the first nationalist government led by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah under the limited self-rule mandate. The government took the view that education was the key to the development of the country, and consequently launched the accelerated education program to accelerate the pace and level of education. Additionally, a program of adult education was launched to drive the home mass literacy. In 1951, total enrollment in primary schools was 154,000, middle schools 66,000, secondary and technical schools 3,550, teacher training colleges 1,960. The total enrollment of the University College, the forerunner of the University of Ghana, Legon, was 208 students. By 1961, enrollment had zoomed to over 210% for primary schools, 142% for middle schools, a staggering 438% for secondary and technical schools, 137% for teacher training, and an astonishing 478% for universities. It is important to note that the bulk of this expansion was funded by the state. Indeed, even the churches which had been carrying the financial burden of education at the height of the colonial administration were required to gradually disengage. Following the overthrow of the First Republic, The eminent scholar Professor Alex Kwapong headed a commission to undertake the first of what has become a seemingly unending series of reforms of the education system. The Kwapong Committee recommended the adoption of 6 years of primary school followed by 4 years of secondary education with 2 years of advanced certificate leading to a 3-year university course. So, less than 4 years after the Kwapong reforms, another military coup led to the establishment of another committee, this time led by the Dean of the Faculty of Education of this university, Professor N.K. Zobo, to review the reform. The Professor Zobo Committee made social equity a fundamental thrust in the delivery of sound educational outcomes, arguing against the common entrance examination for the selection of pupils for secondary schools, as skewed in favor of children of the elite in society. So, specifically, it recommended a new system which retained the 6-year primary school system, but split the secondary system into 3 years of junior high school and 2 years of senior secondary school lower division and 2 years of senior secondary upper division. So, the Zobo report formed the basis for the far-reaching reforms of 1987. In preparing for the restoration of constitutional rule in 1992, the Republican Constitution provided for free compulsory education for all children of school age within 10 years. So, the new government led by Flight Lieutenant Rawlinson's government launched a program of free compulsory universal education in 1996. So, in a seminal study for the British Department of International Development, Nimoy Thompson and Leslie Kasireford observed in 2008. Broadly, the objectives of FQ were in line with the recommendations of the World Declaration on Education for All, adopted after the World Bank UN-sponsored World Conference on Education for All in Thailand in 1990. The declaration stated that every person, child, youth, and adult shall be able to benefit from educational opportunities designed to meet their basic learning needs, and all countries were required to achieve universal basic education by the year 2000. So, the rollout of FQ was followed by a National Education Forum in November 1999 to examine the prospects of Ghana moving towards compliance with the World Declaration on Education for All. Barely 2 or 3 years after, in 2002, another education sector review was undertaken to examine the outcome. Since then, every government has undertaken a serious review of education system. The troubling fact, however, is that each review has either been driven by austerity or constrained by fiscal malice and not necessarily by the desire to achieve their stated goals. So we've had to live constantly with the contradiction between governments holding education as a high priority only for education to become the first casualty of any fiscal downturn. So, against such background, the mixed response to the recent free senior high school scheme has not been a surprise. So, the Minister of Education here will want to do more, but he doesn't have adequate funds to do what he wants to do. So, there's no doubt that the free senior high school program is the most audacious piece of social intervention in our Fourth Republic. The pre-independence program for free education covered primary education and later the university. The secondary sector was beyond the capacity of the state. None of the reforms since have dared move the dial through that space. The decision to take the plunge, therefore, had to be truly ambitious, and it is no wonder it has kept education at the top of national discourse. So, there is undoubted merit in the gap compete in the global economy of today. Then they should be entitled to the same level of basic education as children in other climates. Since basic education elsewhere encompasses secondary or high schools, it's only fair that we also upgrade our basic education. In that sense, therefore, offering free senior high school is doing no more than meeting the obligation to provide the basic education for all. So, it is not only in Ghana that this becomes relevant. In a background paper prepared for the International Commission on Financing Global Education Opportunity, Shakira Mustafa and Phillips Crowns noted with reference to primary schools products The completion of primary school is no guarantee that children have acquired basic academic skills. Sure. Surveys in a number of low-income countries document that many adults who have received some schooling, 5 or 6 years or less, are functionally illiterate or enumerate. Sure. That is an experience Ghana identifies with, and it buttresses the case for upscaling basic education. Sure. But this cannot be that simple. It only underscores the enormity of the challenge associated with the changing dynamics of education and nation building in our times. Sure. Ghanaians accept education as a basic right of every child. All nations signed up through the United Nations and its agencies to provide basic education for all. In Africa, education is deemed so critical, the African Union has declared the Year of Africa this year, the African Year of Education. Sure. In Ghana, it has been part of the objective of every government from as far apart as the nationalist government of limited self-rule in 1951. We see it not just as a human right, it is an economic necessity, an investment in the economic and social well-being of every nation. In the background paper already cited, the authors made the point that when any child fails to acquire basic skills needed to function as a productive, responsible member of society, society as a whole, not to mention the individual child, loses. The cost of educating children is far outweighed by the cost of not educating them. Sure. Yet, though the cost of not providing education would ultimately be higher, nations have to contend in the first place with the overriding problem of mobilizing the resources needed to invest in education. Without the resources, even our most desirable goals cannot be achieved, and that sadly has been the problem not only for Ghana but for Africa. It is the reason we are obliged to make sure that our ambitions are matched by our pockets. Sure. As we have already noted, every educational reform undertaken in Ghana has been driven by financial constraints arising from national economic malice. Whereas in the developed world, educational reforms are undertaken to ensure the content of education matches the economic and social needs of society. Here we are driven solely by what is available to spend in the fiscal space. Sure. It is for this reason that even an audacious scheme like the free senior high school, as I've mentioned, which one would expect to receive universal acclamation, has instead been mired in some controversy, with some blaming it for exacerbating the fiscal malice of the economy. And yet, even with that program, Ghana has yet to reach the universal benchmark for national spending on education as a percentage of gross domestic product. Sure. In the latest UNESCO World Education Finance Watch Report of 2024, the scorecard which monitors progress towards achieving the universal benchmark for spending on education showed that overall, only the high-income countries are more likely to be classified as
a shady car salesman, burning around
to glorious future. Thanks. Jump.
Your Royal Majesty, you would take the alumni oath, and this would be administered by the National President of the UCC Alumni Association. I'll call on Mr. Sam Akotodanso to do as the Yanis, whilst His Royal Majesty takes the alumni oath.